I hadn't done an update on videoing the homestead in quite a while. So I thought I might do a quick one. We just got back from California. Visit my dad for his 90th. That was pretty awesome. Saw some relatives and friends. But I thought I'd give you all an update on some of what we've been up to here at the house. So Karen started a garden and we put deer fence up. So that's black plastic deer fence. And then we did this really fancy fence. So that's just PVC pipe and stuck into another piece of PVC pipe at the ground. Oh, I gotta move this out of the way. So you can pull that up, slide that over there. Works out pretty well. But she's got some beans. Let's see how her beans are doing. There's one. Not too bad. Probably about ready. I think that's all that really made it in this one. This is her first season of doing stuff. Oh. We have cucumber. That's a good size one. So as the season goes on, they get larger maybe? Or as Karen has been out of town, there's one there. She hasn't been able to pick these. So, pretty good size though. Corn, it's doing eh. And then we've got expansion for some others. This row is not being used quite yet. We've got automatic sprinklers set up, and these black pads are the stall mats. We were getting quite a bit of grass growing. Like, so do I weed eat that? Do I spray with Roundup? The black pads really seem to keep the stuff from growing up. We've been letting the chickens free roam a little bit more, so I could probably let them out and check on what their feed and water look like. So, hey girls, they're all happy. Pop this open. And don't hurt yourself. Goodness. So then they'll go out and they're actually really good at getting our bugs and keeping those things going. So let's go check out what the feed and water are up to. We recently threw a bunch of pine shavings in here to kind of help with moisture. It's getting to be our rainy season. So get some of this dirt out of there. Make sure they're filling well. That one's working. Chickens and dirt, it's funny. They actually eat it. It helps somewhat with their digestion. But that's what the grit here is. And then we've got oyster shell. So, might need to put some dirt and diatomaceous earth in their dust bath. See how this is doing. It might be getting a little bit low. Let me check the hopper. Oh no. We've got plenty. It just needs to get shoved down. But I could probably, it's Saturday, usually I'll add about 10 pounds. Alright, I gotta sit this down. It takes two hands to get these. There's these little screws in the front and the back that kind of latch this thing in. Yeah, that worked. Okay. Yeah, so that's the chicken run. And the chickens. So now they'll be wandering out while I've got things going. Your backside looks a little dirty, honey. And they'll just claw around out here. So let's see. We have the egg production side. Got a fan out here for when it gets a little warm. Hey girls. They spread out pretty quick. We've got some broody girls. Let's see if they're in here. Yep. They will huddle together. You gonna let me get some eggs? Or are you gonna bite me? What you got going? Oh, you got one in there. That's yours. Yeah, that's yours. Sorry, I can't tell if I'm getting a good shot or not. And that's all that's in there. All right. Let's see if I can close this up with one hand and not smush eggs. Nope. Gonna have to sit this down. Well, you girls need to come out anyway. See if I can prop this up somewhere. Probably not. Maybe there? Yeah, there we go. All right, you just need to come out. Hey, girl. Oh, don't bug her. She's just being brooding. Come on. Come on. Oh, no, no, sweetie. Come on. There you go. And odds are they're just going to run around and come back into the coop. All right, let's get this stuff. The door will close better. And latch. See what we got going in here? Nothing yet. All right. All right, guys, remind me to come back and get that egg in a bit. Let's see what else we have. I got some more tables for the great room. Let's see if I can get the girls in the shot here. Needed a few extra. There's a auction house out here called Gideon's, and oddly enough, Disney and some other companies or counties, it's actually government stuff, a lot of it, have auctions for things. So I got a series of these white end tables so that if we have gatherings out here, we've got lots of room. Set up some extra chairs, and we've got side tables. So right now the chairs are kind of stacked up. Got some more rockers. I love a good rocking chair. So I've got rocking chairs out here where we can, girls are cackling about something. Where you can just sit and enjoy. I'll usually come out here and read my Bible. Added a couple more of the disc golf stanchions. So there's 4 of them here now. So when folks are over, we can do disc golf. We've got blueberries coming out. They're all still green. I rarely see the blue ones. You got to be quick because the deer and the birds have an innate ability to know when the blueberries are ripe, so they'll come in and get them. Once in a while we can get a few. These are starting to get close. But they're not the greatest. They're a little on the sour side, tart. So we'll typically pull those and, here's a good one, and give them to the chickens. Let's see if I can get these going. See if the girls will eat those. But they're pretty small. See if I like the splashes. They get picked on a little bit, but they're super sweet. Let's see if I can get them some of these blueberries. They are also super, super shy. I'd almost have to throw them out in front of them. All right, let me see if I can toss some in front of them, and they'll probably get them. Hey, girls. You see it? You found them. Yep, that was it. That's the one. I'm watching her instead of my camera. But yeah, they love the blueberries. So we get a few limbs down, and this is an oak limb, and it's, I don't know how long this has been dead, but a lot of times this stuff, it flexes a lot, but it's really hard to get to break. This one's been down for quite a while. Looks like it dried out. But all of these limbs, to try and feed them into a wood chipper, this stuff is just so scratchy. And it doesn't like to fold up well. If you feed the big end in, all of this stuff's got to get collapsed. But in order to collapse it, you got to push it into the feeder. And it's a mess. So for the amount of wood chips I would get out of that, it's easier just to throw it on our burn pile, and I'll show you that in a bit. Much of what we end up with here, as far as yard work, people have their yard trash, they put out a bag or two. You notice all these low-lying bushes. I can come through here with my rotary cutter, bush hog, brush hog, I've heard it called a few things, but technically they call it a rotary cutter. All of that I can either chip and let lay on the ground, and then it'll kind of just decompose there. Or if it's in an area like this around the base of this tree, That I should pull out by the root and get it all out so that we don't have it growing around the tree itself. But all of that takes a little bit of time to go through and do, and I've been doing zones. The area behind me that we call the great room, that had this all over it. So between the rotary cutter and going through and pulling stuff, I used the grapple on the tractor to pull a lot of it instead of digging it up by hand. This is another one of those oak limbs that's down. That one would just be ugly. Ugly to try and put through a wood chipper. So stuff like that goes on our burn pile. I don't necessarily compost as much as I thought about it as I do create trash piles. So on the corner over there, there used to be a big heap of, well, it was palmetto and a bunch of other stuff from the yard that the previous owners had piled up. And it sits there and it decomposes. I don't know if it composts, but eventually it decomposes. It looks like compost to a point. But once it gets to a point where it's somewhat broken down, then you can spread it out. And most of what's on the ground in there is spread out from what was a trash pile, basically. I can kind of show you what one of those looks like over here, I think. No, that one's all cleared out. I've got one out back and a couple of others around. But we'll go through that. Been spending a little bit of time trying to just keep this area so that we've got walkways and that you can come out here and enjoy things. It's another one of our blueberry bushes. It's just wild out here. Most of those still look green too. Sorry, I'm paying attention to where I'm walking and whatnot, not necessarily that I'm in frame, so it is what it is. Let's see. If I go down this way, I think I have a trash pile down here. And there's a few other limbs I had cut in recent times. So I tried to clear out some of this. This is one of those areas where I was working to get, there's blueberries. A lot of this up in here is blueberry. So I was trying to weed out and keep the blueberry stuff and get rid of the other stuff that's encroaching on it. So I've got some clippings here. What I would normally do is bring we call it the farm truck, but it's a side-by-side with a dump bed, and fill all of this stuff up into it and then run that over to the burn pile and get rid of it. Let's see. Yeah, here's kind of what I've got as part of a trash pile. So this is stuff that was kind of in this area and back in there that I, with the grapple, kind of just drug out and then piled up here. And it just kind of sits and does its thing. There's a few reasons why it's easier for me to make trash piles than to deal with the rubbish. One is we've got really, really sandy soil. I mean, the whole place is sand. There's a thin layer on top of what's basically decomposing stuff. So any of the leaves, the limbs, and that kind of stuff, they fall down on the ground, and you end up with this bed of stuff. Now that's all just sitting on top of sand. If you go dig into it a little bit, this was essentially looked the same way, but that white stuff is actually our white sand out here. So you go very far down and you end up with sand. The issues are the sand drains really well, and everything on top, all that decomposing matter, tends to hold the moisture pretty well. But that's also then where bugs and all those kind of things like to hang out. So trying to keep a balance of having enough decomposing matter on the surface on top of the sand that you don't have a sand like a beach that you're walking through in the property, but that you still got enough, or not so much that it's holding so much water that you end up with breeding grounds for all kinds of bugs and whatnot. Let's see. I'm walking around towards where one of the main trash piles are that I've been kind of piling stuff up on recently. It's a little bit more convenient to keep it in one spot, but depending with 5 acres, sometimes it's not easy to haul it all the way across the property depending on what I'm working on. So like if I'm working in this area here, it works out pretty well to have the trash pile nearby. But this space here was one that I ran through with the rotary cutter. I was trying some different techniques to see how well it works. Rotary cutter worked pretty well, but then you end up with a lot of stuff on top. So the thicker areas I have to go through and pick that out and put it on our trash pile. I get annoyed when I walk through the forest because of the vines, because they'll catch on your feet and try and trip you. They're just ornery that way. So that's another thing that goes into our trash piles is, there's a great example. So this is greenbrier that's hooked to my foot. And so you just be walking through and you'll get that stuff. But it's ornery because it's got thorns. But the deer love this. This is one of their favorite foods. So I kind of have to balance how much of this I get rid of and how much I keep. So this I would probably pull out just because it's getting to a point where it annoys me, and it will grow up the trees and suffocate the trees. So the other thing we can do with our trash is make a berm. You walk around the other side of this. So the berm here was actually done by the Forestry Service during, well, there was a fire here. I think I did a video about that earlier. But the bulldozer came down and ended up stopping. And where it stopped and turned, it made a backstop. Basically, this is the backstop for our shooting range. But there's, you know, some of the larger logs and things we can kind of pile up in front of that. And then there's the pile of dirt. Oh, this is one of our trash piles. This is probably one I need to kind of start spreading out. It begins to break down. Of course, the larger sticks, not so much. But this is one of those vines. But at some point, the vine gets to a point where it will snap. And this is kind of what we're looking for, because this is actually greenbrier. It's a little more rubbery than greenbrier. Did I say greenbrier? This is muscadine. Sorry. But as that breaks down and it gets to a point where it's a little more chunky, then I can get this spread out and use it basically as composted dirt. But trying to think of how I can explain this. We've got a few things going on in our dirt pile, or in our trash over where it's a little shady. It's a little warm here today in Florida. So when I gather things up, whether it's the grapple or with the rake or whatever, you get a lot of sand, especially like on root balls and things like that. So sand doesn't burn very well. And if I put it in my burn pile, I can get things to burn, but you end up with this big mass of dirt in the middle of the burn pile, which makes it hard to get all of the material in the burn pile to finally burn, because you've got to unbury as you turn the fire and, you know, do that kind of thing. You end up putting dirt on top of things. So it's easier if I take and compost-ish the piles of trash so that the sand and all that stuff can filter down. Sand will kind of go down toward the bottom of our trash piles, and the other organic material will work its way towards the top over time as it rains and as lizards crawl on it and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the process for that. If I can get the bigger chunks out of it off the top and there isn't a lot of dirt in it, that will go straight onto the burn pile. So this is that wasn't my main. I know I started talking about our main pile, but this is the main pile where I've been kind of putting everything at the moment. So it'll build up to a point, it'll start decomposing somewhat, and then I'll turn it, and the bigger sticks I'll then be able to pull out, put in the burn pile, and use the rest to just spread it out. We don't have a whole lot of mountainous area here, so this is mostly flat. So as I get low spots, water will collect in that, and that's a mosquito problem. So I'm continuing to walk down my shooting range. That's our dueling tree. So we're actually going to have a shooting event here with folks a couple weeks. We'll have a bunch of people here. We'll do dueling. I bought some battleship targets. So you've got, you try and sink the other guy's battleship. Kind of looks like the battleship board, and you're just shooting to hit where the pins would normally be. But that's about it as far as the new stuff we've been up to, the garden composting. I'll take a minute here. I'll walk out and show you the burn pile. The other thing we can do with some of the stuff that we get is reuse it too. These are some of the trees that were cut down from the property. So they end up being lodge poles, that kind of thing. The larger tree wood, this is actually an oak tree we split it and whatnot, but these are some of the larger pine trees that were on the property. I'm not really sure what I'm going to end up doing with those. Oh, but I guess I could show you what we creatively do with some of these smaller fence post sized trees. I don't know if I mentioned earlier the wagon wheels, but we got those out at one of the antique places here in Florida. Welded some legs on them. I think I did a video on that. So now I'm headed back out towards the great room. We did these string lights. They don't show up on camera for me, but you may see them. So the string lights are those goby colored lights. They cast a really neat ambiance here at night. But this is one of those poles. So this was a tree on the property, but there wasn't a tree convenient to string this across where we were going to. There's the one way over there and the one here. But I needed something in between that didn't have a lot of limbs around it, so I made a tree. So there you have that. Let's go out and look at the burn pile. Girls are out here. They really do a wonderful job of keeping the bugs down in the yard. And they will eat the grass and some of the other things, but they will destroy everything. So they're not allowed in the garden. That would just be a bad day. But they're out here roaming around. I got this little pile of dirt I need to fill in a little bit up against the edge of the shop to make that transition in a little bit smoother. Cody's car parks in that bay, and it's enough of a lip that it stops you and you have to hit the gas hard. Kind of makes me nervous. All right, let's go to the burn pile. It's over there. I tell you, having this driveway is nice. It makes coming and going much easier, much smoother. Should have probably done it a long time ago, but it wasn't inexpensive. All right, so here's the burn pile. It's getting pretty good size. This is one of the trees that came down. This wood isn't the greatest. I'll have to go. I can't tell you the name of the type of tree. It's in the oakish range, but it's a lot softer. But it isn't really good for anything, and it rots as it does. It becomes spongy. So it doesn't make good fence poles or anything else. A lot of what you see up on top of here, that's all oak. It's a pain to try and do. If I stomped on this a lot, I might be able to actually get it to feed through a wood chipper. But the trouble I run into with my burn pile is I can't light that on fire. It won't light and burn very easily. So I need a lot of kindling, and the oak makes really good kindling. So I probably know more about fire burn piles than I do about composting, trying to get the right composition of kindling and then heavier woods so that you get what you want burned. The first couple times I tried doing burn piles, oh man, it took all day and into the night, and I'm supposed to put the fire out at night, so trying to relight it the next day, it was kind of a pain. So I've really gotten it down to a science where I can build a burn pile now about the same size as my early ones that took 12 hours or 15 hours to burn. I can get one set up now where in about 4 hours I can get the whole pile to burn down to nothing. This is rattlebush. It's actually high in nitrogen. I don't know if you can hear that, but the seed pods in there kind of end up with a bit of a rattle to them. So they call this rattle bush. It's great for the environment because of the high nitrogen content that it has. It's not prevalent on the property. We get a few of them here and there. But if I were to try and do composting, the rattle bush is probably a great one that would give us nitrogen against all of this brown. But yeah, so there's a good mix of kindling. This one would actually go up and burn pretty quickly if I were to finally light it. I've got some more trees to pull down, some more material to get in here, but you can see where previous burns have happened. So I've got a little bit more space where I usually make the pile a little bit bigger. So while I'm out here, I should go check on our tortoise, see how they're doing. We've got several on the property. We also have, because of that fire, when the bulldozers came in, they moved a lot of our dirt off to the sides. As part of that, I pulled a lot of this, but when I need sand and whatnot, dirt to fill in areas, this is it. But the gopher tortoise has taken advantage of this. This I haven't gotten into. There, underneath all that shrubbery, there's actually a mound of dirt. But you can see a little bit of the tailings of his home. And that is our gopher tortoise den. Now, to give you an idea, there's my hand, if I can get it all in the shot, against that. So that guy's probably 8 inches wide, and the den ends up in the kind of the shape of his shell as he pushes through there. So he'll dig out the bottom and then push his body through there, and his shell will kind of carve out the roof. So because that's higher, this is kind of more of a summer home for him. He can do it year round because it's up off the water table. But I've got a couple more of these. Let me go check on them. The space I'm walking to just outside of that den, these are oak trees. I think they're live oak, but makes a really gorgeous kind of shady area. We set a picnic bench out here. We were doing Bible study out here for the community. Put a sign up, invited everybody. We're still working on that. But yeah, we've just got a bunch of gorgeous spaces out here that I love. So let me walk over to these other two gopher tortoise dens, see how they're doing. So this is one of the smaller gopher tortoise we've got on the property. Although it might be getting a little bit bigger this season. But yeah, you can see. So they scratch out everything and claw it up into here. But that's his den. I can tell it's active because the hole itself is fairly clear. There's not like spider webs growing over it. And we've got another one. You can probably see the sand mound from the distance. This guy's been around the longest. And that den's been the most active for the longest time. He has been working at this one for several years. You can tell about activity partly because of the tracks in the sand and then the hole. Those bits that are dangling down, let me see if I can zoom in on that. You sort of see that. Those are actually kind of bulbs from the greenbrier. So he's dug up and kind of left them hanging over his thing, but they probably just bobble out of his way. But that's good. So he's still active. So that's 3 that are active living here. This area up here was one of the first areas that we really started working on clearing. It had a lot of palmetto, but it was in the front yard. So most of what you see was pretty overgrown and full of palmetto and greenbrier. In fact, let me spin around. The oak tree you see in the center there, that one we didn't know there was an oak tree there. There was so much greenbrier and muscadine growing over things. It was this mound of ivy, but we cleared that out. And that tree's flourishing now. Same thing with the one over here. That one's doing really well now. This one, not so much. This one was really covered in a lot of ivy and greenbrier. Looks like I still have a greenbrier stalk. So I've got to come back and clear this stuff around the base. So if I cut it off at the base with trees like this one, I'll usually just let it die. But this is the stuff that the deer will come through, and they love this. The trouble is so it comes out of the ground and it grows up just so far. This is at a height where the deer could get at it, although they like the tender shoots. So if you notice, this part is pretty well stripped bare. So all of the tender leaves, they've pretty much come in and got. This thicker, older area, it isn't as tasty for them. So they will tend not to go after this part. So they want the ends, the tips. We've got some tip up here, but that's getting a little bit too high for the deer's. They don't bother with it. It's like, oh, I got other stuff lower that's easier to get at. I won't get that. But this will then begin to grow up, and you can see some of the dead stuff from the previous time we cleaned this out. It'll grow up, and it'll eventually, with this tree, it had actually jumped from one tree side to the other and was coming down this other pine tree. So it begins to create quite a mess, and it'll draw this tree down. The reason why this tree's got to lean is probably because the greenbrier had grown between them and the muscadine, and it was just pulling the two trees together. So it's not really good for the habitat. So I need to come out, and I didn't realize that one had gotten that bad. So we need to clean that up. This space over here had a lot also. Some of it's coming back. I can see it up on top of that one. That's over on Josan's side. Trouble is, oak trees, when you start messing with the ground around the base of them, their roots are really, really sensitive. Their roots all are surface. So, just noticed another den, and that one looks active too. But that gopher tortoise has had to push its dirt up this way along the fence. So it's not coming into our yard, it's going into Josan's. But most of what you see here, as far as these vines and whatnot, that's all greenbrier. Greenbrier is it's a grape, but that's its leaf. But it's pretty invasive too. It'll go all over the place. And then we've got some greenbrier in here too. But you can see here, this is starting to sprout out pretty well. But this is a place where the deer can get at it. So they will get all those tender leaves off and then leave the older leaves for someone else. All right, I was headed somewhere, wasn't I? So we're headed into this is the forest that we call this the North Forest. But this, you wouldn't have been able to walk through here when we bought the place. It was pretty full. This is another berry, blueberry. They're not quite ripe. But I'm trying to leave all of the stuff that the deer would like where they can get at it. But try and get rid of all the invasive stuff. Like you can see, this is the greenbrier, or the muscadine. And I mean, if I pull on that, it's an integral part of this tree now. Let me get that zoomed down a little bit more. But it becomes this big vine of a mess. And it goes up and covers the whole thing. This is getting really a skirt now of both. This is the greenbrier, which has the thorns. It also gets a berry, which the deer will eat. But you got to make sure you don't confuse it with blueberries. But so there's a big thing of that there. So this is another area I'd have to come back. Otherwise, this oak tree that's underneath this will eventually get suffocated and it'll just kill it off. And we like the oak trees, and the muscadine and greenbrier, not so much. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do to just get this area cleared up. But a lot has been done to get it a little safer, get things that limbs aren't falling in storms and whatnot. Speaking of that, to be able to mow, sometimes I'll have to bring the farm truck around and pick up downed limbs. There used to be some cedars around the base of this pine. The cedars had almost died. Probably the competition for things between the cedars and the pine didn't go well. But I took those out. There was a big hole over here. We filled that in. But it's coming along. I've got to flatten out that mat to where a generator will sit when we have to generate power, but I've got some sand I pulled in that hole there where that dirt is. That's a low spot, and water collects there. So that's not good. But anyway, that's a quick tour. I don't know about quick. It probably took me a while to walk through it all. But that's the majority of the property. That's what we've got going on. Oh, I could show you some of the other improvements we've done in the shed for taking care of the chickens and just storing things for the garden property area. Karen's out taking care of things. Did you see all your cucumbers?
I know.
There's some giant cucumbers in there. Uh-oh. Missy, I don't know that you want to be in there.
I think she was already in here to say hi. She's the sweet one.
Okay. She knows not to mess with your garden?
Well, she hasn't messed with it yet. So.
Okay. Well, be nice.
I've got one more that might be another day or two before I can pick it.
Oh, you got your beans.
But,
good.
Yeah, I had a bunch of them, and they're not getting any longer, so.
That's about all there is.
Yep.
Those are good-sized cucumbers.
I know, huh? I got to get the rest of the stuff to pickle them.
Okay. And there's another one. Is that one ready?
That one is another day or two.
Okay.
And then it will be ready. But I've got another one in there. And I thought I saw another one that was started. Oh, yeah, there's one in between there that's going to start to go.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Awesome possum.
Love it. I love it. Oh, another one right there.
Yeah, that's pretty good size.
In a funky spot here. Look at you. There.
Nice downward.
So this guy, this is the one that keeps falling over, so I don't know.
It may not make it.
It probably won't.
It looks like it wilted. So when it gets to that
yep.
point of wilting, it's done.
It's done.
So.
Oh, yeah. So.
It rotted.
More, but it's okay.
But that's rot, so that's probably too much water.
Okay. So
that's what we would do over
clear,
in this one is.
Yeah.
Well, and you can just plant corn in all three of these this season.
Well, I was gonna take the whole, just the ground, and do maybe 1 or 2 rows out there.
I think we should try and put them in the
Just
raised beds.
Okay.
Well, you can do all 3 raised beds. We just got to run a drip line down.
Yeah.
And poke holes in it and just one run. Well, you could probably get 2 rows.
I might get 2 rows in it.
Yeah. And that way, because this one, that looks like too much water. I think they're rotten at the base.
Mm.
So this row is on one feed, and the other row is on a second. So we could have this set get less, and that one get more. So we'll work it out. Yep. Hey Thor, how you doing? I heard your brother crying for you. I realized I didn't look at the shed and show y'all what that's been up to. This is that used to be the top of the chicken run that was here when we bought the house. It was about where the shop is now. And then I got this free canoe. That's one of my projects. It needs some patching. It's got some holes, like there's a crack, a few cracks in the bottom, but that should repair pretty easily. Oh, looks like I probably got to figure that out. That's probably a big crack too. So we'll get her patched up, save it, and go from there. Some of my implements for the tractor. But let's take a look in the shed. Let me get this door. There's a handy chain here that we can use to keep the door from flipping in on us. So we store a bunch of miscellaneous stuff in here, but the main deal is we've got bins and setups for feeds and things. I think this one's now empty. We used to have the mealworms in there. That looks like it's oyster shells. So we've got regular feed and scratch and cracked corn. We had got these smaller bins, another auction thing. And that's where the mealworms are, grit, and so forth. And then some wood shavings. picked this scale up at auction with the cart, which was kind of nice. We realized that when you give them feed, they can have about 10% of the cracked corn in a week. Otherwise, you'll give them fatty liver, which isn't good for them. So we can take this scooper and set it on here, and I can know that the scooper's half a pound. So we feed them about 20 pounds a week of grain. It's easier for us to then be able to weigh things with the scale and make sure that we're only giving them about 2 pounds a week of the scratch and that kind of thing, just to keep that fatty liver from coming up and causing them problems. So the shed's also kind of a catch-all for other things. We've got another feeder in case we put that other chicken run into play. I didn't show you that one, but it's right next to the others. Just a bunch of miscellaneous stuff. We've got some sandbags that I could fill, our garden tools that we would use throughout the property are there, fuel storage, so we've got propane gas, that kind of thing that we can keep up in here. Some of our outdoor recreation things, so on the shelving there we've got the stuff to set up the ping pong table. Discs, yeah, the discs are there, and horseshoes and things. Somewhere back below there are the cornhole and whatnot, and then we've got storage for the pine shavings and whatnot. So it's just kind of a catch-all for the kind of outdoor things. Some extra hardware cloth in case we need it. It's always handy around here, especially with animals and critters you're trying to keep out of places. All right, that's probably enough rambling for one day. I want to do another one here coming up soon about the car care ministry. Hopefully I can shoot a little bit more video that's entertaining about that, so y'all can tell a little bit more about what we're really doing here ministry-wise on the property, kind of where God has us landed. So I got the transition there a little bit smoother. Kind of hard to tell from here, but we'll see when I pull Cody's car in, which is out here. If it's a little smoother to get in there and it doesn't run over a lump like driving over a speed bump. Anyway, Karen came out. She was working on the garden, and it's like 5:30, and we were doing stuff in here. I'll show you the garage door we worked on, but I'm like, oh, I need to put the chickens up. They've been out all day, but turns out when she finished up working in the garden that she probably put them up, luckily, so they haven't been running around all day. It's usually not a big thing, but I wasn't paying attention or listening for them, so I didn't know if hawks were coming about or whatever. But anyway, let me show you the door, and I'll wrap this up. So, big reveal, I guess. It's all of that radiant heat barrier, and we still need to do the very top. I don't know how we're going to do that. That's way up high. But this radiant barrier is what we're putting up on the doors. It's 2 millimeters thick, so it's super thin, but it's got this foil backing. We'll see if tomorrow, when I come out here, if it helps with the heat load in here. Eventually it gets up to the same temperature in here as it is outside. But I'm thinking if I could keep the radiant heat from getting in with the doors closed longer, it'll make it a little bit more pleasant. And then I just open the doors and do air circulation as the temperature starts to drop in the afternoon. But right now that wall is in the afternoon. It's going to be the one that gets hot. So it'll be the project a little bit later. And then this is the one we've been working on. So I've got part of that done, part of this corner done, and a little bit down the wall. This one heats up a little bit in the morning, so I'll probably continue on down this wall as the next project, because the far side of the shop over yonder, that whole wall, I got shelving and stuff I'd have to move. Most everything else is on wheels, but that'll probably be the last wall I do because it's the latest in the day. But I'm warm. It's been a day. Karen was out here helping me. I didn't film any of that, but she was awesome. She's got a lot more patience in doing this stuff here. She was putting the tape in and getting it stuck to the door and then out into this section, just so that it had a good mechanical connection. I don't have the patience for that. She does. She's awesome at that. Anyway, take care. And again, God bless, and we'll see you later.